104.5 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball, if you want to call it that. We got Buster Olney with us right now. Buster, let's start with the weather. Like, games are being postponed at like a record-setting pace right now. Is there any reason to be alarmed? Is there anything to be done? Where's you? I know you said we're not going to schedule based around the weather, but is there something to be done?
No, really. You could try to be more efficient in terms of getting as many series in the division as you can in the month of April, and that makes it easier to reschedule postponements in the event of bad weather. Because the worst case scenario is when you have like an interleague game, or you have a one-time road trip for some team into a Cleveland or Detroit or New York, and then you get a rain out. Then it becomes a problem in terms of rescheduling. But no, there's nothing you can do. We talked last week about how, and every year this comes up when the weather's bad. Why don't they just start out in the warm weather cities? The Padres don't want a bunch of games in April. The Dodgers don't want a bunch of games in April. The teams in the domes, they don't want a bunch of games in April for the same reason that the Yankees and the Red Sox and other teams in the Northeast don't want one, because school's in session. They want to have as many games as they possibly can when kids can come to the park. And that's why there's really no perfect solution to the problem.
And Anthony Rizzo saying that he'd take less money to play less games. He's just talking to himself at this point, right?
Well, and I tell you what, I respect the fact that he recognized the money adjustment that would be required for something like that. Because I've had a lot of conversations, guys, through the years where, like, we're talking about pace of play, and I've had players say to me, well, you know what they should do? Cut out commercial breaks. And I chuckle at being someone who works for a broadcasting partner of Major League Baseball, and I say, okay, well, does that mean you guys are going to get back the money that you otherwise would make from the TV rights? And you get the blank stare like, what? What? That would be a part of it? And so I applaud the fact that Anthony Rizzo actually acknowledged that, yeah, if we play fewer games, then we're going to make less money. And I'd be willing to bet that folks in the Players Association offices were like, what are you doing? What are you saying? We never talk about giving money back. I'm sure that there are players who would like to play fewer games, but it is what it is. The season is 162 games long. It goes on for 6 months. You just have to cross your fingers that you don't get a bunch of snow out and rainouts.
Let's get to the New York Yankees. They've had their fair share of rainouts, and Giancarlo Stanton continues to struggle early on in the season. What is up with the National League MVP?
It's a thing. Look, there's no doubt about it. And anybody who tries to pretend otherwise is just being silly at this point. I thought it was the right thing for Aaron Boone to do the other day when he talked about, we might move him down the lineup. Just shake it up. Put him in the 6 hole. Why haven't constantly come up with either Gardner and or Judge on base, and then he has the pressure? Because, guys, this has a chance of becoming a thing. There's no doubt about it. When you have a player who has struck out more in his first 8 home games than any player in the history of baseball, that according to Elias, 20 strikeouts, 3 hits and 35 at-bats, then you got to start thinking about doing some other things. And, the worst possible nightmare for the Yankees would be if they just, acquired this National League MVP, and in the first year of a 10-year contract, it becomes an issue where he can't play in New York. Wow. I mean, the adjustment out of that for the Yankees would be unthinkable, and they've seen it happen before with Ed Whitson and Kenny Rogers and Denny Nagel. There are times, there are situations when players get freaked out by New York. I don't think we've gotten to that point, but there's no doubt he's putting a ton of pressure on himself.
Buster Olney with us, brought to you by Techie's Fire and Water Restoration, your best way back to normal. Visit them online, tefirewater.com. The other name that's being bandied about, and I just saw Jack Curry from the Yes Network say tonight is not the night that we'll see Gleyber Torres in the Bronx. I mean, the clock's ticking on this kid, right?
Yeah, and it's not only because he's playing well and they believed in his talent, and I think no doubt if he hadn't gotten hurt last summer, he would have been up by the end of the year. But it's also what's happening at the big league level. Like, if you're an evaluator now with the Yankees, you're in the front office, you're watching the team play on a daily basis, and they're not playing well. Tyler Wade has not played well. Some of the other guys, Andujar, has been better the last couple days, but he struggled at times. And so they're looking for solutions. And given how they're playing, given the expectation, and here's the other factor, given how hot the Red Sox are, you better start to fashion a response. 6.5 games out, and we're only 3 weeks into the season. you better believe it that if I don't think it would surprise anybody if he were up in the big leagues within the next 72 hours.
Red Sox? Well, I've never heard of such a thing. What?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but they're one of the 7 fastest starts in the history of baseball so far this year. And they've gone out to Anaheim, and they've been destroying the hottest team in the American League, the Angels. It gives you an idea of how well they're playing.
No comment.
That's right. Like, you just move on from that. Shaker High School Zone Capital Region's own Tommy Kaling heads to the disabled list. Some shoulder tendonitis going on there. What's the timetable on Tommy Kaling's return?
When he's healthy. I mean, that's an easy one. And you know, like I know, that the Yankees are historically very conservative when it comes to treating injuries, because when they look at their pitchers, they don't think about, a 6-month season. They think about 6 months of the regular season plus October. Certainly the fact that his velocity was so far down significantly, that raised a lot of questions in their front office. And so they're going to take their time and make sure that he's right, because he demonstrated last year what kind of a weapon he could be.
Oh, man. Let's talk about the New York team that actually is playing well, the New York Mets. Just how good are they?
I think they're a good team, and I think they're certainly in the conversation with the Nationals now. I still wonder if they're a top-heavy team. I love what's going on with Michael Conforto, the fact that he's come back and he's getting on base and he's playing center field. And I personally loved what happened in the game that they played on Wednesday. Steven Matz came out. He kind of slogged along in the first inning. He gives up 3 runs. He's due to bat in the 4th inning, and they pull him. And you could see, Matz went back to the bat rack and, slams his bat down. And look, that's not unusual. Players will express themselves, and they're allowed to be unhappy about decisions that are made. But you guys have certainly heard the stories of how, in recent years, there was a thought in the organization that some of the young players on that team, the young pitchers, there was a sense of entitlement. And right after he does that, he goes to sit down, and Dave Island, the pitching coach, who's a no-nonsense guy, walks right up to him and explains, hey, here's the deal. And Mickey Callaway, walked over too, and he's explaining it, and they love the fact that Matt's want to stay in the game, but I think they also want to send the message, look, you want to stay in the game, pitch better. Get off to a better start. Have a better first inning.
Buster Olney with us right now on 104.5 The Team. Buster, Bryce Harper hits one of the coolest home runs I've ever seen, complete broken bat. Have you ever seen anything of that caliber?
I've seen broken bat home runs. I've read about broken bat home runs. I've never seen a home run in which the barrel went flying off in the way that it did. Going back to the screen, separating. I've seen crack bats. I've seen bats that are splinter, but that really is an amazing feat to hit a ball 406 feet. It was interesting. I can't remember the reporter who sent this tweet out that in the Astros clubhouse, they were watching that, and they're immediately going right to the juice ball theory. The pitchers are about what happened.
18 games into the season, and the Cincinnati Reds have already relieved the duties of their manager, Brian Price. Isn't 18 games too quick?
Yes. And this does feel like, and I mean, with all due respect to Bob Castellini, who owns the Reds, it does feel like more of a firing by an owner who is frustrated. It's this type of thing that George Steinbrenner did with Yogi Berra famously, because they made the decision to keep Brian Price into this year, and the team is terrible. I had scouts with other teams are saying, man, the Reds look awful. They're still in the process of developing their players. Our Keith Law talks about how they actually have a pretty good farm system, but it certainly early in the season, they have a terrible performance out of their pitching, and they're getting blown out. And so Brian Price becomes a sacrificial lamb. The idea that he's responsible for how poorly they're playing early this year is ridiculous.
Buster Olney with us thanks to Tech East Fire and Water Restoration. Look, I don't even know if baseball season's really started for me yet, Buster. I think that's the way I have to look at it.
Now, that's interesting because it wasn't really a question. It was more of a statement, but I know exactly what you're talking about. You just want to pretend that, yeah, it's the cold. Yeah, okay, it's just because it's April. It's still early. I will tell you that I spent a lot of time talking with executives this week about, okay, when does it stop being early and when does it start to become a problem? And what I'm hearing is, yeah, it starts to become a problem very soon. So your Yankees, they probably do need to turn it around, especially because of that team that you refuse to acknowledge or talk about.
I asked about the Mets. Buster, I mean, soon, but not yet. So that I'll hold on to that with both hands. Where are you going this weekend?
We've got the Dodgers and the Nationals from Dodger Stadium, so I'm getting on a plane this weekend.
That's going to be a fun game, man, a fun series. We look forward to watching and listening to you on the game, and hopefully next time we talk, it's more some positive news about the New York Yankees.
Yeah, if it doesn't get better over the next week, I would expect that you probably will refuse to participate. We'll see.
I do feel a little tickle in my throat. I might be getting sick. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you, brother.
Okay, guys.
Buster Olney brought to you by Tech East Fire and Water Restoration, your best way back to normal. Visit them online, tefirewater.com. Guys, you know what I'm doing right now?
What?
I'm going to tefirewater.com to see if they can restore the Yankees.